We're looking at things like personalization, credentials, and interactions. These are kind of the areas that I see that technology is really going to enable us to do some different things and to maybe actually really open up new avenues of opportunity for our students. So what am I talking about here? With personalization, right now we're looking at things like adaptive content, adaptive pathways, and tailored outcomes, flexible schedule, and flexible assessment. So like what does that all mean? We're seeing technology enabling people to look at the content that they need a lot more quickly and a lot more targeted to the things that they need. Think about the last time that you had to repair something around your house. Maybe your ceiling fan was broken. Not speaking from personal experience at all here. You go to YouTube and you find a video about how to repair a ceiling fan, and you scrub the video to like the one 30-second slot you need to fix the thing. And then you go fix the motor, you rewire it, and then you're done. So you need that adaptive content. You need the content that fills the need you need right now. And we're able to get there a lot faster with things like search. So, I mean, looking at, so here we have kind of like a little like flow chart here of like what we have, that how sort of personalization used to be or is right now, and what's kind of coming down the pike, if you will. So like before, it was really about flexible pace and place. That's how Southern New Hampshire University got where we are now, is we moved from the in-person model, the traditional time-bound and face-to-face model, to online education, a computer-based training. So all of a sudden, things that required a faculty member to stand in front of you, you suddenly have this ability to make that more asynchronous and to take it anywhere. I could take a class from a college here in New Hampshire. I could take it while I'm in California or Ohio or in India, any place, all over, right? So where we're seeing this now in the future is more flexible content. We're looking at adaptive content. We're looking at simulations, things like what Samit just showed us. All of these abilities to show really new pieces of content in new and exciting ways. Alternative assessments too. So all the things that that Eric was talking about at Chegg as well, about how you make these pieces of content that really actually respond to what learners need, rather than is just a static textbook, for example, right? And the pieces that support that textbook and support the learning. So this kind of personalization is something that we're really tracking. We're trying to figure out the best ways to incorporate into our learning experiences. Next up, we have credentials, micro-credentials. Again, what academic presentation in 2021 would be complete without mentioning micro-credentials or blockchain? I got it on there. So, you know, we're looking at these different kinds of things. Also professional certifications, apprenticeships, open badging is a really great technology that I think is still waiting to sort of take off. But these are all ways that technology is enabling us to reevaluate exactly what kinds of credentials are needed for given uses, and the kinds of ones that have value in the workplace. And so I think looking at credentials as they used to be, we're seeing things like the working adult. You know, you get your degrees and you have your licenses, and that was kind of where we as higher education could find new opportunities, is by engaging the working adult to get another degree, a new degree, or maybe to help support their licensing. But now as we move forward, I think we're going to see an uptick in that lifelong learner, which is more around micro-credentials, upskilling, reskilling, and still maintaining that need for degrees. But rather than, I heard it said someplace, rather than the idea of front-loading your career with a degree and then continuing onward, instead, I think we're going to see a lot more different pathways for how people get to their degrees, whether they go straight to it and then continue to support it with more professional development along the way, or whether they'd start with a professional certification and then move that into a more traditional degree pathway. I think we're going to see a lot more of that blending between work and education, and in smaller pieces, which the credentialing can really help to give milestones along the way and help people get worth out of those degrees and the credentials. And lastly, interactions. This is where we're talking about things like learner to content, learner to faculty, and automation, and learner to learner, peer interactions. This is the last area that I think we're going to see some really interesting changes as we move forward post-COVID. The pandemic really hit a huge nerve in terms of the way that people approached all of these different pieces of the learner experience. And I think we're going to see a lot of big shifts here. So before we were, again, looking at what the most recent innovations, if you will, we were really going with this kind of analog equivalence. Like we were looking at how do we replicate the face-to-face learning experience? We sent things over email. We have discussion boards, in your courses, and we work with a computer. We bring those things in. I think we're going to see more of an erosion of that dedicated learning space, and instead it's going to be starting to meld into more of our day-to-day life. Not unlike how work life has done the same sorts of things. Everyone has their work chat on their phone. Everyone checks their email from work on their phone. They bring all these different parts and pieces into their life. So I think as we move forward and we start teaching more digital natives instead of people like myself who grew up in an analog environment and slowly became a digital citizen, we're going to be looking at our learners, our traditional college-age student of 2030 is a digital native. They've grown up with the internet being a thing their entire lives. So things like video chat, obviously the pandemic made Zoom a feature of everyday life. I think things like Slack and Reddit, I think are going to be really interesting sorts of microcosm cases of how discussions and community actually build out through the future. Search has rewired our brains, the way that we catalog information, going back to the adaptive content piece. And finally, I think mobile phones are going to become much more of a big technology piece in all of our education. So that's kind of how I think we're going to be moving forward, going forward with technology in the education space.